You are listening to the Will Power Podcast. Welcome to the show. I am Will Holdren, and I talk with some of the most influential CEOs, entrepreneurial leaders, and thought leaders to reveal the secrets that have led to their success. I believe that with the right knowledge and mindset, you can do anything you say your mind to. So if you want to learn how to change your life for the better, if you want to learn how millionaires actually became wealthy, or if you want to develop and start your own business from the ground up with the right knowledge to help you, then you are in the right place because this is the Willpower Podcast. How are we doing, everyone? My name is Will Holdren. I am the host of the Willpower Podcast. Today we have a stud realtor based out of the Nashville, Tennessee area, and his name is Jon Sexton. And as I mentioned, Jon is a top realtor based out of Nashville with Benchmark Realty. He's won several accolades such as Best Real Estate Agent as well as Top Real Estate Agent for his area. He's also been endorsed by Dave Ramsey, which is absolutely incredible. And on top of that, not only is he a realtor, but he also has been recognized as a top 50 entrepreneur in Tennessee. So it's an absolute honor to have him on here today. So Jon, with that said, first and foremost, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, Will, thanks, man. That was a great intro. I was kind of wondering if you're talking about me.
I appreciate it. What you do obviously speaks for itself. And obviously, I'm happy to have you on here and kind of get your story for everyone listening to see how they can kind of level up their own lives kind of based off what you're telling them. So
Sure.
starting out, I want to ask you a question I ask all of my guests, which is one, what makes you want to hop on podcasts like these to go out there and just share your story?
Well, so gosh, I mean, my story's kind of long because I'm old, so I'll just warn everybody now. Um, so I moved out to Nashville in 1996 after I graduated college. Okay, and what year were you born?
2001. Yeah.
Oh yeah, there you go. Perfect, perfect.
Yep. Yep.
Uh, so anyway, oops, sorry. So I moved out here in pursuit of music, and I knew I didn't want to be a starving artist. So I started my own quote unquote personal training business. I was a college athlete. I got my personal training certification before I moved out here, so I had some experience doing that. So when I moved here, I said, I basically my first. I didn't even want to really pursue music until I got this going. Well, I got a waiting list within 8 months. And so I developed a team. My whole goal was to create something sustainable at home while I was pursuing music on the road. So it happened much faster than I thought. And I got really lucky with that. So I was able to pursue music in a way that maybe other musicians weren't, which gave me an advantage. I could afford rehearsal space, recording studio time. I could vehicles. I could rent U-Hauls to take equipment. So I was in a spot where that's where I wanted to be. I want to have that advantage, right?
Yeah.
And so, I pursued music really hard, and for 5 years, I used to write songs for film and television, and my band ended up getting a record deal with a major label. It took 5 years to get it, lost it in 3 months because the guy that signed us, our A&R guy, ended up getting fired
Wow.
shortly after we got signed. So it was kind of a disappointment. Had one too many heartbreaks. I took my fitness business and rolled that into owning health clubs, and started as a partner in 2003. Bought them out in 2008 and kind of grew that. And 2008, by the way, was a
Oh,
terrible time to buy something. But
yeah.
as a matter of fact, the Nashville Business Journal did a piece on me. I was so excited. They called me up, and that's the big business publisher in town, and they want to do a piece on me. I'm like, sure. Ends up being that I had the largest SBA loan that year in the state. I'm like, that's not really a good thing. However, made it work, got it done. Um, so I grew that. We became Nashville's best health club like 12 years in a row.
Wow.
But in that time, I also had found some partners to help me get a location that where I first started. It was a thriving tennis club, and it ended up becoming full circle around to 2012, from 96 to 2012, and it being a dying tennis club. And that when I say that, I mean they had clay courts in the back, on the back 6 acres. It was on 11 acres. It's 85,000 square foot building. And they decided, and it was just, the clay courts became weeds and falling down fences. So it was a real estate play. Got investors say, hey, that back 6 acres, it's in the prime spot of town. Let's see if we can, get it rezoned and develop it. So
Yeah.
took 5 years to get it rezoned, built 54 townhouses.
Wow.
Then I moved. That's how I got into really selling real estate. I've always been a real estate investor, um, but that was where I decided I'm going to start selling. So made a deal with the developer. I got 6 listings out of the 54. One of the guys that was very well established in town. I got the rest. I understood why. I was new, but I got knocked it out and really quick. Kind of, and then my business kind of grew from there. And now I've got a team of 10. We've been named this area's best real estate team. I've been fortunate enough to be named, you know, as you mentioned, one of the best agents in our area. So it's
Yeah.
all kind of really that's sort of the evolution. There's a lot of war stories in there, I promise, and it was not smooth. I got beat up. I almost lost my house. I mean, there's a lot of things that happened to me in that time. So, but anyway, so here I am and talking to you.
Yeah, I mean that is a incredible background. So I appreciate you sharing that, and it's incredible to see how you change industry, change careers, and no matter what you kind of jumped into, it seems like you found success at the end of the road, which I think is a pretty great entrepreneurial trait. So kind of jumping into that story, you mentioned early on you wanted to go in music. You were in Nashville for music, obviously for that purpose, and you weren't doing it full time. You mentioned you're also doing fitness and kind of doing that on the side and kind of running both those lanes. I think a lot of people listening to this, they think of the idea of that if they want to start a business, they want to start whatever it is, like they need to jump into that with both feet right away, even though they don't really have like safety net. They don't have something that can just pay the monthly burn rate, right? So kind of walk me through that. I mean, what would you recommend for people? And like, is it necessary to jump in with 2 feet? Obviously, in your story, you kind of ran both tracks at once. I mean, is that what you would
Mhm.
recommend for people starting out?
Well, I even go a little step further is that even when I started my real estate, I didn't, I was still doing health club. So I had I had something very sustainable over here that I knew that I'd be a little more fruitful over in real estate. So I kind of worked my way out of it, and it took years to do it to where I finally was, and I had a comfort zone being in fitness for so long that when I stepped away from the operations, it made it, it was a big jump because I had a salary and I had all, plus other things that come with it. And over here, you don't. You just jump in and you're commission only, and you just sort of you believe in yourself. But I absolutely, you do not have to draw up your LLC and start your business, and that's all you do. You can 100% work your way into it. You don't have to be in a big hurry. You'll feel and know when the time is. Just let your ego go and just work really hard and know that you've got two careers at the same time, and you just got to be make sure that one doesn't sacrifice the other, and when it starts pulling away from the other, then it's time. Like I at the end of my tenure in fitness, I was doing more real estate in my fitness office than I was doing more managing and running the place, and I just knew that it was just time for me to go because I didn't feel right about that.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. As an entrepreneur, I mean, life can get super hectic very quickly when you start doing, like you mentioned, multiple jobs at once. And obviously, you know exactly all about that. In my life, from what I've done already, I'm already feeling the time pressure on some things. You really don't have a lot of time for outside things. I mean, that really is the grind of it. And like you mentioned, your days can really become nonstop. And for me, like from recording this podcast and running my real estate company, networking, and everything between, I'll be real with you, staying focused and productive, without burning out has really been a challenge. And, on a side note, I've tried things such as like coffee and energy drinks, but I always ended up kind of with a crash or maybe even feeling more stressed than even before. Recently, I came across something called Magic Mind, and they actually sent me a few energy shots to try before we even discussed, potential sponsorship. And I have to say, I was super skeptical at first, but after a few days of trying this really amazing energy shot, just after a few days, I really felt the difference. My mind was clear. I was able to knock out tasks faster. I didn't get that jittery, over caffeinated feeling that usually hits after too much coffee. And it's amazing. And Magic Mind is really just a mental performance shot, not a coffee replacement, but in addition to your morning routine, it's packed with nootropics and vitamins that will help you with focus and even motivation, productivity. I've seen that firsthand. It actually also helps you reduce stress, which I think in today's world, it's super important, especially when you're an entrepreneur running multiple tracks at once. And trust me, when you're building a business, reducing stress is just as important as increasing productivity. Um, One thing I love about Magic Mind is that it's really not just a quick fix. It actually builds up over time. Some of the ingredients that you'll find in Magic Mind actually take a few days to reach full effect. So for you guys listening, I would definitely recommend trying it for a week and just seeing how you feel after that week. It's scientifically backed, it's doctor approved, and it uses some of the highest quality ingredients out there, like organic, ceremonial grade matcha from Japan, and even other great nootropics out there. So if you guys are looking to upgrade your focus and productivity as an entrepreneur, and you don't want to feel wired or crash during the middle of the day, I would definitely recommend giving Magic Mind a shot. Right now, you can get up to 48% off your first subscription or 20% off a one-time purchase when you use the code WPLT20 at checkout. Once again, that code is WPLT20. And again, use that code at checkout. We'll put the link in the description, and that link is going to be magicmind.com/WPLT20. Again, go check it out. Go click on the link and let me know how it works for you guys. Wow. Yeah. That's a great point too. It's all about the seasonality, right? I mean, you got to understand that while you might be working, like 12-hour days, 15-hour days sometimes, I mean, it's just a time of life and it's not permanent, right? So you just got to
Yeah,
focus.
it's like your t-shirt says, man, it's all incremental.
Incremental, exactly. Thank you. One step at a time, right? One step at a time. But
Yep.
that's incredible though. And next thing I want to ask you is that, I think a lot of people they jump into something and it might be like their first or second business they try to get into and they want to give it all they have. And at some point, like it's just not clicking, right? And so I'm curious, like when do these people know that it's time to pivot or try something new rather than keep grinding down that same pathway over time? I mean, even with you and your music, I mean, you got that record label after 5 years, which is so impressive. I think most people, even in the music world, don't ever get that chance. But then you said like short time after the guy that hired you guys got fired, and then you guys are just out there in the cold, right? So how do you
Yep.
understand when it's time to pivot in your journey and try something new?
Man, I just have to say that you have to sort of pay attention, right? If you're in the weeds all the time, it's really hard to look up. So if you can kind of take a CEO role of your own business. Now, granted, you're probably going to start off as a sole proprietor, and you're probably going to be a one-person show in the beginning, and that's just how it is. Um, and I will say that it it's you just have to pay attention. You have to constantly know, like, if something's just not working, it's okay that it's not. I promise you, you're failing to win somewhere else, and it happens all the time. And everyone that is successful will tell you that they have failed and failed and failed and learned how to pivot off of that. And even if you have a great idea, that doesn't mean that it's going to be successful, because that might not be your strong point. I'm going to tell you, there's a book that I really always tell people about. It's called Rocket Fuel. Have you heard of this book?
I have not heard of it. No.
Okay, all right. It's all about leadership. And I wish I would have read this earlier in my careers. They have two type of leaders. Now you can be a little bit of both, but there's the visionary and there's the integrator. Well, the visionary is the person that they're the leader that sees the whole big picture, even kind of knows what tools they want to use to get to there, right? However, what they're not very good at is implementing those tools and getting the right people in place, but they have the vision, they know what, so they're the driving force, they're the big idea people. That's more me. The integrator is going to take that vision and put things in place, put processes in place and things of that nature. So though I know the processes I want, I can write it down on a whiteboard. I can tell you what softwares I want to use, what the automation is going to say, all that, but I need someone to put it in there and put it together for me. So when you're a sole proprietor, you just have to know what your strengths are and where you need help. And it's okay. So I'll tell you, I released a workout app. It was, in my opinion, it was way ahead of its time. And it was an app where you, it was, do you remember P90X? You might be too young for that, but P90X is okay. It's a big in-home, real, like, was real successful, but in-home workouts. Well, there had never been a workout series designed with gym equipment that you can do anywhere in any gym in the world.
Mm.
And so I created that. I filmed it. I did it. I had software where you can figure out I helped create a software that we can eliminate your guesswork, finding out where your metabolism is based on your lifestyle.
Oh,
And I mean, I had everything in place, everything that you needed, all the systems you needed. Great, great concept. But
yeah,
I mean, so the vision was there. We got it done. I didn't know how to implement it into the world, and it did not do well. Invested a lot of money. I'm still proud of the project, but it was something that um, if I would have known that about myself, I would have brought on the right people. Now here's the product. Now go. Now here's the record I made. Now go sell it. Right now, get it on all the stations and streamings and all that. Right. That's how I just didn't do that. I thought I could do it all myself, and I was wrong. So that was an expensive lesson.
right. An expensive lesson. Yeah, no doubt.
Hmm.
And was that app at the time that you were running the gym, I assume?
Yeah,
Or
it was.
so what's interesting about that is obviously, you say, as a leader, you got to understand when it's time to hire people, bring people onto your team. And what's funny is that after that happened to you, obviously, I mean, later on in your story, look how great of a leader you become, leading your own real estate team and going into real estate investing and doing all these great things. And like
Hmm.
you mentioned, it's really just a stepping stone. You just learn along the way. And then, 10 years later, 10 years later, you're learning your own lessons and capitalizing on it. So that's pretty
Hmm.
interesting.
Yeah, I mean that's why, and I never really had a mentor until later on in my fitness career. Um, I learned more about what not to do versus what to do and get that leadership.
Yeah.
And so it's really important that you find that mentor. And I hire a coach. I use a coaching company called Eisenhower Coaching and Training, ICT, and they're great for me. And I use them because I did not want to make a lot of the same mistakes that I did in fitness. I just needed that guidance. And they're there. They don't teach you how to run a really great open house. They teach you how to really run a strong business.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
mhm.
All great points. And so you mentioned you made a lot of mistakes during finishing. What were some other the major mistakes you would say you made with that company for doing that?
Well, I don't know if this was a mistake, but I'll tell you the hardest time. In 2010, Nashville was flooded, and it was flooded in a big way and really ruined, it really took over a lot of people's lives. And it made turned into challenges. A lot of people lost their homes or their homes were heavily affected. And the area that my health club was in we were not flooded, but all of our members were. So I had to make a decision right there. I had to make a decision of what was I going to continue to just keep them auto drafting and keep the business running, or was I going to go to them and say, "Hey, life's tough right now. I'm going to push everything on pause. When you're ready, come back,"
Mm,
which is the right thing to do. It's people over profit. And that's what the direction I chose. Now, I knew I was going to personally suffer from that financially. I knew it. I've always believed in myself. I knew I would bounce back, but it was rough. I didn't take a paycheck for 6 months. Everybody else
wow.
did. I made sure everybody got paid. And I don't think I even cut anybody's pay. Um, but I talked about, I almost lost my house. I mean, I was days from losing my house. I was, and I was recently divorced. And so there was a lot of heavy stuff going on during that time. And it was a rough, and when you lose your house, it's a stressful situation because there's a lot of notices and banks and people calling, and you're trying to just communicate. The important thing is I kept communicating during that time with uh those debts that I owed,
Yeah.
um because I knew I'd be okay, and things were starting to turn around. I was able to prove it, and I was able to sort of salvage the situation, and it worked out clearly. But um those they're tough times, and then not only was I having to worry about my personal life, I also had to worry about the business. I had to rebuild from there too. Now that was 2010. So 2008 was the recession. Had to build through that, just start to get on track. The flood, right? Had to start building there again. And then, we when we ended up taking over that large facility that I talked about, we moved our operation from, they were just miles down the road from one place to the other. And we thought we were going to kill it. All of our performance was going to be great. And we were going to bring two clubs together. I mean, it was just going to be a cash cow. Well, guess what? Golds came in right behind us and took the spot. I was so mad at the landlord, but what could I do? It was out of my, he's just watching out for himself. They came in, cheap monthly membership, brand new equipment. So that just didn't work out. So then our whole plan and our whole performance, everything, just we didn't plan for that. And so we had to rebuild from there. And we got rid of tennis because because tennis was dying, and we turned it into a turf field. So we lost another 500 members that way.
Oh
It
my.
was just insane how everything was sort of looked so promising and fell apart quickly. And you just got your back against the wall, and you're just trying to. Luckily, we had working capital when we bought it over because we had borrowed a lot of money, so we were able to kind of work our way through that.
Yeah.
But it was it wasn't easy. It
It's
wasn't.
hard.
I probably rebuilt that club 5 times
Oh my
with
God.
help, not just me. I don't want to. I want to clarify that I had plenty of help doing that, but very involved with that.
Yeah, I think entrepreneurship, just even from what I've seen so far, it's such a grueling road. And I don't think people understand really the hardships that go along with that as a business owner too. I mean, you talk about people who are profit, and yeah, I think a lot of people step into it. They want to have that right mindset and kind of walk down that same road. And they want to do that until they start to feel it in their own pockets, like you were talking about. I mean, you were literally days away from losing a house. You're still paying your employees, right? Their salaries. And that to me is just absolutely incredible. And it's entrepreneurship to me is all about like how you can make it just that next day, right? And just keep moving forward, keep moving forward. I think the underlying principle is just don't quit, right? And that's just
No, but you have to be smart, right? You can't just
yeah,
not quit and then go and keep you walk off a cliff that way because it's just you've got to know when to pivot. There's got to be you get that's why you again be out of the weeds, take a moment, look what other which way can we go here and there. In fitness, we did that so many times with this health club being so big. We had baseball and then we pulled out of that because it just wasn't very fruitful. We've had tennis, we pulled out of that, we turned to turf. We just there's a lot of things we've pivoted so many times in that club.
yeah.
It's been insane. And even in real estate, I've pivoted multiple times as well. I mean, it's just you can't just hold on to things too long, or else it's going to cost you a lot of money, and it could cost you, you know, um, more than that.
So I'm kind of curious. I mean, just in that story, I mean, what happened that you were able to not lose your house in that situation?
Well, business started to pick back up.
Just in that
I was
couple.
able to start paying. I was able to start paying myself. It's just really what it came down to, and I was able to prove it.
Yeah.
So, I worked out a deal with the bank that for my mortgage, and we were able to kind of start it over.
That's awesome.
So,
Yeah.
almost like a refi
Yeah.
with
That's awesome.
penalty.
Right. Well, great
But it worked
timing,
out. I
right?
still made money on the house as that's a great thing. It was an appreciating asset that I was working with, right? And I knew that. I knew that they really didn't want to have to sell it for cheap because that area was starting to grow, and I was and I wanted to be there. And so that's kind of how that worked out.
Yeah. So talk to me about that pivot, obviously from the physical fitness side of things, so running gyms into real estate. I mean, you mentioned you went into real estate investing, and I think you said you got 54 townhomes at one point, which is just insane to a lot of people listening. But I think you mentioned you got that from one developer, which is absolutely incredible. So yeah, so kind of walk me through that pivot there.
Yeah, so don't want to misunderstand. I didn't own the 54 townhouses. We had those built in the back after we got the back 6 acres rezoned. He built 54 townhouses.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and so uh, and so from there, so that was in 2017, and that's when I got my license, and so once I was able to kind of prove to myself and to him and to others around that I could do it and I could do it well because of the years of having trust as a business owner, having all the relationships I've had, being here since 96, I just had people's trust. And so therefore I was able to create a really good network and your SOI, which means sphere of influence, and those are the people that you know directly, whether you know them personally or you know their name, they know your name, and you could reach out to them on a text message, an email, or a phone call, and it would, they would know who you are. So I had a very large database of that. And so I really took advantage of that. I put myself out in front. You have to sort of, it's interesting because you have to sort of pivot from everyone sees you as this, because I trained NFL athletes, I trained celebrities, I trained, kind of everyone. I did very well in that world. And so I was able to, I had to kind of create a new identity because it was a new career for them to see me in.
Right. It's a big switch.
But
Yeah.
yes, but it kind of made sense to everybody on how I got there. So now it's just a matter of showing that I can really help them and being one of a business mind and being one that has invested in real estate and has personally bought and sold my personal homes, my primary homes. Um, I had enough experience that most people don't have when you walk in. And I will tell you, most real estate agents don't have any sort of business accolade. They don't really understand business, and that's okay. They know how to serve. They're really good at servicing and just being a one person show, but it's not really a business. A business is something you build that you can sell. That's the way I look at it, right? So
Yeah.
they just sort of have a job. So I want to turn this into a career and into a business. So that's where the difference is from an entrepreneur standpoint of my side of real estate.
Yeah. Gotcha. And as you mentioned, I think it's crucial to learn, both sides of that, whether you're an investor or realtor, just to be around that real estate transaction, understand how that transaction actually operates and works. And you can
Yep.
just take that with you. And like you mentioned, real estate is probably one of the biggest assets that anyone's going to purchase in their own life. And
Mhm.
so, it's a lot of responsibility going with that if you're on the agent side, but also on the investor. I mean, there's just so many benefits that comes along with like taking depreciation for tax purposes. You get the appreciation long term, you
Yep.
get cash flow. So it's just great in that regard. So I'm kind of curious. I mean, what made you want to be more on the agent side rather than the investor side and kind of grow on the agent side of things?
Honestly, well, I mean, I know I could do both. And being an investor, you get to sort of, get the advantage of finding the deals and doing the transactions, and you get paid for it too. So, and I can use that income towards, whatever it might be, whatever if we have something to fix up, then we can just turn that around and put it into it or whatever, right? So I saw that as a big advantage. But honestly, I love serving people, and I've always been that way. I've always been a caretaker. I lost my mom at an early age, and I had to be a caretaker for her early on. And from the age of 8 until 20, that was a part of my upbringing. So this is natural for me to be a caretaker. So I really enjoy that. I enjoy sales. I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy the negotiation. I mean, there isn't a thing about it that I don't really like. I mean, though don't get me wrong, and not every deal is perfect. I've messed up in deals and I've done really well on other deals. So but I enjoy it. I enjoy mentoring the agents that are on the team as well. They're really great people. I just bring on good people, and if you're a good person, we can help you get into being better at in crafting your sales and your conversations and things that come along with it. Not everyone's going to get there, but those that start with me, they're just a good person. Period.
Now, do you see any benefit to, I mean, having a real estate license and being an investor just so you can be representing yourself in your own deals from what you've seen
Do I see that as a
as a benefit, advantage?
Oh,
Yeah.
100%. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to dive into the deal a little bit deeper. My due diligence, I probably have access to things maybe that a normal investor won't, but it allows me to help other. I made a guy $1.2 million in a year and a half.
Wow.
Yeah, investor. He was pretty happy.
Yeah, I would say so. I
Hmm.
would say so.
Yeah.
I
So
think, yeah, yeah. I was gonna
go
say
ahead.
for a lot of investors out there, I mean, I think having your own real estate license makes all the sense in the world. Um,
Yep.
I'm an investor myself, and I have my real estate license back up in Pennsylvania. I'm doing the whole reciprocal license thing down in Georgia, so I'm getting it down here. And like you said, it's just
Good
easy
for you.
to get access to your own deals, and you get paid on your own deals, and it just
That's exactly right. And it's you save on the back end too.
right, yeah. There's just a lot of benefits. Yeah,
And 30% I'd say about 30% of my deals that I do are both sides. Because I
gotcha.
bring in people like when I'm selling investments, I'm usually finding talking to people I know, bring them as a buyer because I'm educating them.
Yeah,
You know, like for Airbnbs in particular, like or when you have a short term rental, if you're a W-2 employee, there is a humongous tax write-off if you can self-manage the property. You can basically write off almost your entire W-2 taxes, not always, but most of the time, if you do it right. I mean, you got to get a tax attorney and do it the right way. But there is a huge advantage, and there's something that's called it's cost segregation. Have you heard of that?
Is that different from taking the appreciation, I'm assuming, on the property all at once to depreciate?
Well, sort of. Yeah, you get it depreciated, but what they do is they you get someone in here and you hire them to do a segregation, and that is they're your HVAC unit, your refrigerator. They itemize everything. It's got to be professionally done,
Mm.
and then you can depreciate 60% at this moment, 60% of that. And so it's like a 5-year play, basically. And then once you have those 5 years, then you move on to the next property, you 1031 exchange it, and you bring it over into the next one. You do it all over again. So once you run out of the depreciation, you're out. It's more of a tax play than it is a cash flow play. Now you get the appreciation of the property, but you get these huge tax benefits. That's going to save you, gosh, tens of thousands of dollars. I mean that you would be paying in taxes.
So did you say the max you can take is 60% in one time for the depreciation?
Yeah. Yeah, now I've heard that the current administration is looking at letting you they did it for 100% at one
It
point.
used to be
And
higher, right? At one point, I believe. Yeah,
it did. And now 60% is where it is, I believe now, but it's but I think now that they're going to bring that back
gotcha. And so you
because I
said,
think it was brought in by them last time.
yeah, I got it. It's right. So yeah, most likely, yeah, if it's tax beneficial, then probably we'll see. Hopefully, we'll see if it changes or not. But that'd be good.
Yeah, so when someone's looking for as an investor, and they're trying to rent property, I really talk to them about that, and I've been able to um, really help people, and everyone's been happy. Most of them have been happy if they take that approach. Now, I'll tell you, it's a tough market. We're currently
Yeah,
to own short-term rental if you're just trying to, if you're just you want to have someone manage it for you. It's a tough time.
yeah,
But if you play it smart and you have the time to self-manage it, it's a great investment.
yeah. I mean, do you see the market changing anytime soon? I mean, to me, just looking at it, I mean, inflation's down to 3%, which is pretty much close to the Fed's target rate for inflation. But in my mind, I mean, if the cost of capital is still expensive, right? You can go out and get a loan. I mean, the mortgage is still expensive. It's like 6.7 is the average, I think, nationwide. I mean, it's still super expensive to people to just use capital, leverage capital, and go out there and buy things, right? Especially for a house. So, I mean, do you see the rates coming down anytime soon, or do you think with all these tariffs and everything we're seeing right now that recession's coming and it's
Yeah.
worse? Or what do you see there?
Well, I don't know about, I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't really know. I don't have the magic ball. Nobody does,
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah,
I will say this is that it's a great time to buy because you're going to get a better price now. Because once those rates come down, you're probably going to be paying, anywhere from 8 to 15% more.
yeah,
So it's worth, I mean, again, you're just sort of, you marry the house and you date the rate is, it just, and there's opportunities like our clients do not usually pay today's rates because we really negotiate the seller to buy down their rates.
mm,
There's a 3-2-1 buy down, a 2-1 buy down. There's all kinds of really great programs that are out there. I mean, now, gosh, one of the major ones, I think it's Rocket. I'm not sure, just for a jumbo loan for up to like $3 million or 2 million. I can't remember the amount. You can now get a 40 amortization of 40 years, and they'll even do for the 10 years they'll do interest only. There's banks that are really trying to help people get in, but I mean you can still get in for $0 if you're doing a VA loan or FHA loan. You're very minimal. So there's all kinds of ways to get in and be affordable. But I'm just telling you, like, what's interesting about it. Are you real familiar or familiar at all with the 2-1 or 3-2-1 buy down
I have
situation?
not. No.
Okay, love it. So let's just say the rate's at 6.5, right? Just use that for simple math. And I come in and I go ask the seller to buy down. Well, we have to first be working with a lender that's going to know how much is it going to cost to buy down your rate. So 3-2-1 means for year one, you're down 3 points. So you're at 3.5 year one. Year two, you're at 4.5. That's the two. This is 6.5. You're 6.5 is the highest you're going to get. But
Gotcha.
so year one is 3.5, 4.5, and year three is 5.5. And then on the fourth year, that's when you're back up to 6.5. Now, ideally, we're hoping you can refinance in that time. And if you do, let's just say it cost $25,000 to get that 3-2-1 buy down. Well, you have the seller do pay that down for you, right? So in the offer, we're offering, I would say, let's offer closer to the asking price, but get them to pay these concessions for you, right? Because every $10,000 you borrow is roughly about 75 bucks, right? So if we knock it down $20,000, well, then you're really only saving 150 bucks a month. But from a 6.5 rate to a 3.5 rate, you're
Huge.
saving hundreds and hundreds, some of them thousands, depending on the price point. Like I did in my home, I'm saving $2,000 a month right now.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but here's what's really cool that a lot of people don't know about is that money, that $25,000 that they put in there, they put in like an escrow account, and every month it buys down that rate for you. Make sense? So that amount's slowly dropping. But let's say you refinance year two, and there's $17,000 more to go. Well, guess what happens when you refinance for your rate? What happens at $17,000? It goes to you.
Mm.
Yeah, it doesn't just sit there. It goes to you. You get that when you refinance.
Wow. Wow.
Pretty cool.
Who offers these loans, the 3-2-1 stuff?
Call my boy David Bonner. He'll take care of you.
Okay.
He can do
Yeah.
it. He can do it all over the place. I think in Georgia as well. Now it's harder to do on investor loans. I will tell you, right? But sometimes you can.
Gotcha. So this is
Hmm
primarily for primary residences for some home buyers.
Well, you can even do secondary as well. Some of them. It just depends.
Gotcha. Yeah,
Hmm
I didn't even know that was a thing. But yeah,
Yeah, it's a big thing, and if you do it right, it makes your world a lot easier, way more affordable. Because it's all about that hard cost. Like I'm all about. I would much rather. This is my own personal thing. Dave Ramsey's going to kill me for saying this. So don't, any Ramsey listeners, this is not a Dave Ramsey thing. This is, I like to keep my hard costs as low as possible. So if I can get a term, like say if I bought a car and I would rather go all the way out to 84 months, even if my interest rate's a little higher, get my hard costs low, and then just pay on top of it as I go. And there's a Dave Ramsey way. You snowball, right? You move it, you knock it down. But I like the longest term with the smallest payment.
yep.
So
Yeah.
even like on a 30 versus 15 year, yeah, you're going to get maybe a better rate at 15, but you're going to be at a higher payment. I'd rather take it on 30 and treat it like it's at 15. And if I have a bad month, because hey, I'm on on commission. If I
Yeah.
have a bad month, I'm just going to pay whatever my lowest hard cost is.
Yeah. I think that's so smart. I'm honestly on the same page as you. I think a lot of investors are like, oh, I want to get an amortizing loan just so I can build up a little bit of equity in the beginning. But in my mind, I'm like, if you can just pay interest only and just have the least amount of out-of-pocket costs, like why would you not do that? Right?
Agreed.
Give
Yeah, because the first few years anyway, you're hardly touching the principal, and then because you're interest only, and then you pay on top of that, you can knock it down quicker.
yeah, I mean, give the bank the least amount of money as you possibly can so you can keep that money in your pocket. And to me,
Yeah,
a lot of people look at banks in a weird way, but to me, it's like, man, a bank is really it's an optimal business partner out of all the choices out there because they're asking
agreed.
for 6%. That's it on the cash. If you go out
Yep.
to a private
Yeah.
investor, they want equity, they want interest over time. So it's just
hmm
find a way to work with a banking system like you're
Yeah.
talking, figure out
Well,
these.
even if it's a shorter term hard money loan, and
Yeah,
you just you negotiate, your rate, even if it's a little higher, you can pay them interest only, and then that way when you do flip the property or whatever that exit strategy is, they get less of that. You're just giving them a higher interest rate for them because they're going to get their money back anyway.
yeah. There's so many benefits to just understand the rules to the game, right? And I think a lot of
Yeah,
people never
totally.
get to that point where they understand the rules really in depth, right? But like you're talking about,
hmm
you can just put $17,000 in your pocket, and now they're
Yeah,
you're done with
right. Exactly.
it. So
I mean,
you just gotta learn
yeah,
them.
and guess who paid for it? The
The
seller
seller,
did,
yeah, the
right?
seller, yeah,
Yeah, it's great. That's awesome.
yeah. You just gotta be able to understand how to negotiate that. But yeah, that's I'm glad you shared that. I didn't even know it was a thing. So the
You
more,
got it. You got it, man. No secrets here. Just got to be able to do it the right way.
yeah, and work with professionals, right? Like yourself. So That's why you're one of the best agents in Nashville, right there. You understand that stuff. That's what separates it. Um, yeah,
Thanks, man.
that's awesome. But before we run out of time, I just want to ask you a couple more questions. So,
Yep.
going forward for you, I mean, honestly, you've done so much, you switched a couple of industries. Now you're in real estate, crushing it in real estate. What are your goals going forward from here? I mean, do you picture yourself staying in real estate? Do you picture yourself pivoting again, or what does that look like for you?
So I'm always open to other ideas. However, in the real estate space, my goal is to get out of production,
Mhm.
mentor, bring people up around me and let them sell, right? At the same time, add more ancillary services, such as be a mortgage company, a title company, an insurance company, and then we have a big umbrella and we're a one-stop shop,
Yeah,
right? And so my goal is to be able to create multiple revenue streams with my agents, so that way my being a part of my team is more valuable. Now, there are definitely rules that that you have to comply with. So you can't just, get a commission for a referral fee for getting a loan. You have to actually be um, a licensed loan officer to be able to do that. But there are ways to that we're working towards to where it's a opportunity for once we get it right, and we're still working on it, making sure everything complies before we move forward. But anyway, multiple services, one umbrella on the real estate space. That's kind of definitely where I see myself. And then, there's other things that I like to dabble in as well. Um, but they're typically, investing in people. And and that's something I think that's important. 'Cause some people took a chance on me, and if I can feel really good about somebody and their idea, I'm willing to do that as well.
that's awesome. It's a great mission. And my last question for you is, what would be your number one book recommendation? I know you talked about Rocket Fuel book earlier, but outside of that, do you have any other, great book recommendations you'd recommend?
Yeah, so Four Disciplines of Execution is what it's called.
Okay.
40X. And it talks about, creating leaderboards. It talks about having lead measures versus lag measures. And it just really is a real great way to run a business and puts processes in place, understanding the importance of it. And so, running your business that way, you want it to be able to be very streamlined, something that you can duplicate. Ultimately, remember when you're trying to sell something, I didn't name it the Jon Sexton team. I named it Nashville Home because it's Nashville Home and we're based out of Benchmark, but we're a team with Nashville Home ideally because I named it for that for two reasons. One is if you call and you're on my team, hey, this is Will from the Jon Sexton team, they're going to wonder, well, why isn't John calling? Right? I want you front and center, number one. Second is who's going to buy the Jon Sexton team, that name, right? Now, what they're really going to buy is the processes and everything that you have that's streamlined. So make sure to whatever you're starting, you have there's an exit strategy and how you're going to get there, and it's going to take time. You may not know exactly what it is, but you got to get those processes in place to be able to do that.
It's great, great input right there. It's all about systems and processes. And like you mentioned, have that sell in mind and see how you can keep doing the business without you having to be there. I think that's ultimately the end goal.
That's
So
yeah, exactly.
yeah. Well, with that being said, I appreciate you jumping on here. Before we hop off, is there anything else you would like to say? And if people want to reach out to you, how can they go about and find you?
Yeah, thanks. Instagram's probably my biggest following there. Currently 360 something thousand. Got Jon dot Sexton is my handle there. By the way, we didn't talk about this, but I'm also a TV host.
Oh,
Um, yeah, I have a show called Selling Nashville. You can see that on HGTV and Travel Channel and all kinds of different streams, right? So, but to go look at the episodes right away, please go to my YouTube, which is just the same thing, Jon.Sexton, and you can go to check out my episodes there. I've got three on there now. Fourth one's coming. I'm getting ready to film my fifth one, and then Nashville Home Agents, Agents, is our website for any real estate needs anyone wants to talk about there. And I guess also I do have a podcast. It's called Calling Nashville Home, and you can find that on anywhere you can find yours.
That's fantastic. All right, guys, there you have it. Go check them out. With that said, Jon Sexton, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Will.